All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's on the Power. So I wanted to do a video comparing Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu. So this video is a little bit inspired by my video yesterday comparing Wesley Vissers and Pete Hartwig. And you guys really seem to enjoy the style of videos where you guys get to be interactive and participate. So I'm going to be doing a poll on this video as well on Franco versus Arnold. Which physique did you prefer? Now, back in this era of bodybuilding, in the 70s specifically, there was an over 200 and under 200 category at the Mr. Olympia. So you could have a shorter guy like Franco Columbu, still have the opportunity to be very successful and win the overall title at the Mr. Olympia. Then you had a taller guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger who would compete in the heavyweight category, and he would win from 70 through 75, and then also win again in 1980. Franco Columbu would win the first Mr. Olympia after Arnold left, the 76 Mr. Olympia. Then Franco would also make a comeback after Arnold's last Olympia to win the 1981 Mr. Olympia. So Franco Columbu, a two-time Mr. Olympia champion. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a seven-time Mr. Olympia champion. Now, Arnold and Franco had a lot in common. They were essentially best friends when they started out their bodybuilding journey in America. They both came over to pursue bodybuilding in America from other countries, Arnold from Austria and Franco from Italy. Now, despite being training partners, competing together, and best friends, Arnold and Franco had two very, very different physiques, which had a lot to do with the height of each competitor. Franco Columbu was about 5'5", weighing roughly in the mid-180s during his competitive prime. Arnold Schwarzenegger was roughly 6'1" to 6'2", weighing roughly 225 to 240-ish during his 7 Mr. Olympia titles. So even though Arnold was the much bigger bodybuilder, both in height, weight, and muscle mass, Franco Columbu was actually the stronger bodybuilder and was invited to compete in the first ever World's Strongest Man in 1977. And if you go through all the powerlifting lifts, he was pound for pound way stronger than Arnold was. So even though on paper he was much lighter than Arnold, he still had a very thick, dense physique just packed onto a smaller frame. So when comparing who's the better bodybuilder or which bodybuilder you prefer, you've got to consider the fact that Franco never beat Arnold during his Olympia reign. They competed at the same Mr. Olympias, Franco doing the under 200 and Arnold doing the over 200. But during all the times that Arnold won the Olympia and Franco also competed, Franco didn't beat him. And Franco didn't win the Olympia until after Arnold left. So that's certainly something to consider. But when a lot of people compare the physiques of Arnold and Franco, some people say that Franco was more conditioned. He had more definition, and he had that granity look to his physique, that hard graininess because his muscle was so dense when he got conditioned. Some say he had a more detailed look than Arnold did. And this also goes back to the age-old debate of do shorter bodybuilders have an advantage over taller bodybuilders, because it's easier for a shorter bodybuilder to fill out their frame and be more complete and pack on as much muscle on their limbs specifically as possible, because a taller bodybuilder has more length to their arm, more length to their legs, and more overall area to fill out with muscle. So a lot of people argue that in bodybuilding, being short is an advantage. But on the other side of the coin, when people are talking about classic physique, a lot of people say that the classic physique is better represented by a taller bodybuilder because the way their frame is built, typically they have wider shoulders, a smaller waist, and their V-taper is accentuated by the fact that they are taller and have this bigger frame. So for classic, a lot of people tend to prefer the taller guy. But for bodybuilding in general, a lot of people say the shorter guy has the advantage. So that's an interesting thing to consider when comparing the two physiques, all the muscle that Franco was able to pack on. But on the other hand, the illusion that Arnold was able to present with his physique because of having that bigger frame. And you could also make the argument that Franco had a little bit better muscle maturity than Arnold, because Franco was 6 years older than Arnold. He's currently 77. Arnold is currently 71. So he had a few more years of training under his belt. When him and Arnold both hit the bodybuilding scene, Franco could arguably, you could say he had more mature muscle because he had been training longer, and his physique had more time to develop compared to Arnold. When Arnold was in his prime, in his mid to late 20s, Franco was already in his early 30s. So there will be a link in the description box below where you guys can go vote on which physique you preferred, the shorter Franco Columbu or the taller Arnold Schwarzenegger. And try to keep it objective. I know that Arnold is way more famous than Franco. He's way more well-known, so as a result, more people would be inclined to vote for Arnold. But just consider all the factors, all the comparisons of their physiques, and then go vote. I think it's an interesting comparison. And I also think it'd be interesting to bring back the over and under 200 categories of the Olympia, or at least have Flex Lewis or whoever wins the 212 Olympia be able to compete side by side with the men's open Mr. Olympia. I think that's an interesting idea. I think it was an interesting dynamic back then, and I think it would be something that would be interesting to bring back today. I would certainly enjoy a Flex Lewis going head-to-head with a Sean Roden or Phil Heath. And on that same topic, it's going to make for an interesting 2019 Mr. Olympia because there will be a brand new 212 Mr. Olympia champion. Sean Roden has only won one Mr. Olympia so far. There could very well be a new Mr. Olympia in the men's open next year. We could have two new Mr. Olympia champions next year. So I can't wait for that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure you go vote. Thank you guys for watching the video, and please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.